My name is Camila. I am 24 years old, and I come from Brazil. I arrived in New York City 6 months ago. When I first came to New York, everything felt big. There were tall buildings, busy streets, and many people walking fast. There were yellow taxis everywhere, and the city seemed full of energy. But even though the city was exciting, I felt very small. I did not speak much English, and I didn't know how to talk to people easily. We're saying, I couldn't talk to people the way I wanted to. It made me feel like I didn't belong. One morning, I was sitting on the subway when I saw two women talking to each other. They were speaking English. I tried to listen carefully, but I couldn't understand everything. It made me nervous, but I decided to say something to them. I smiled and said, "Hello, my name is Camila. I am learning English." They looked at me and smiled back. One of the women said, "Nice to meet you, Kama," and the other woman introduced herself as Mia. They were kind and friendly. I told them I was from Brazil, and they said, "Your English is good. Keep going." It was a small conversation, but it made me feel really happy. I felt stronger because they encouraged me, and I wasn't scared anymore. That day, I made a promise to myself. I promised that I would study English every day. I wanted to understand people better. I wanted to speak with confidence. After that moment on the subway, I didn't want to be afraid anymore. I wanted to speak English with people and not be scared of making mistakes. I decided to look for an English school in New York. I found one near my apartment, and I signed up for a class. I was excited, but I was also nervous. It was my first step toward learning English. The first day at school was a little scary. When I entered the classroom, I saw many students from different countries. There were students from Korea, Mexico, Turkey, and China. It felt good to know that everyone was learning English, just like me. We were all there to improve ourselves. Our teacher, Miss Taylor, was very kind. She smiled and welcomed us. She said, "You can speak English, believe in yourself." That made me feel better. I smiled and sat down, ready to learn. Miss Taylor told us something important that day. She said, "You don't need to study grammar all the time. You need to use English every day. That's how you really learn." I liked hearing this because studying grammar was difficult for me. I always felt like I wasn't good enough. But now, I realized that using English every day was the best way to improve. Miss Taylor said, "Language is not about rules, it's about connection." We learn a language to talk to people, to share ideas and dreams. That made sense to me. I wanted to speak, not just read. I wanted to use English to connect with others. The next day, in class, Hannah, a student from Japan, asked Miss Taylor a question. "What is the best way to learn new words?" she asked. Miss Taylor smiled and said, "The best way to learn new words is to read." She explained that people who read a lot learn vocabulary faster than people who don't. She said, "Try to read for 30 minutes every day. Choose something you enjoy. It can be a short story, an article, or a simple book. If you enjoy what you read, you will learn more." I thought this was a great idea, so I decided to start reading every day. Miss Taylor also said, "When you see a word you don't know, look it up in a simple dictionary. You don't need to write it down, just understand it." This helped me a lot. I started reading small books and articles, and when I found new words, I looked them up on my phone. I learned the meaning and tried to understand how to use the word in a sentence. This was a good way to learn because I didn't feel like I was under pressure. I enjoyed it. After a few weeks, I felt better about my English. I was no longer afraid to speak to people. I joined a volleyball group at school, and I started practicing English with my new friends. We came from different countries, but we all spoke English together. It felt good to talk to people and practice what I had learned in class. I was no longer afraid of making mistakes. One day, I had a big moment. I had been working at a cafe near Central Park, and my manager, Tom, asked me if I could answer the phone in English. I was nervous because I had never answered a phone in English before. But I said, "I can try." I picked up the phone, took a deep breath, and said, "Good morning, Cafe Green. This is Camila speaking." I was a little nervous, but I focused and listened carefully. The customer ordered 2 sandwiches and a coffee. I repeated the order back and said, "Your order will be ready in 15 minutes. Thank you." I was so proud of myself. Tom gave me a thumbs up, and I felt happy. Later that day, I called my mom in Brazil and told her about my success. "Today, I answered the phone in English," I said. She was so proud of me. I felt proud, too. It was a big step in my journey to learn English. Looking back on these past months, I realize how much I have learned. I am still not perfect, but I speak more confidently now. I can understand people better, and I am not afraid to make mistakes anymore. Every day, I learn something new. Learning English has given me more than just language skills. It has given me confidence. It has helped me believe in myself, and I know that if I keep trying, I can keep improving. When I first arrived in New York, I felt small and lost, but now I feel like I belong. I am learning, and I am growing. I am not afraid anymore. I know that with each step, I am getting closer to my goals. I am proud of how far I have come, and I know that I can keep going. The first day at my English school was exciting, but also a little scary. When I entered the classroom, I saw many students from different countries. There were people from Korea, Mexico, Turkey, China, and other places. We all looked at each other with the same feeling. We were all learning English together, and it made me feel less alone. Our teacher, Miss Taylor, was young, friendly, and very kind. She smiled when we walked in, and I could see that she was excited to help us learn. She said, "You can speak English. Believe in yourself." That made me feel better and less nervous. I was happy that I was starting this new chapter in my life. We all introduced ourselves, and I felt a little shy. But as I looked around at my classmates, I realized we were all there to do the same thing, learn English. I felt connected to everyone. Miss Taylor told us something that made me feel more comfortable. She said, "You don't need to study grammar all the time. The best way to learn English is to use it every day. You need to speak and practice every day." I like this idea because studying grammar was always hard for me. I was happy to hear that I didn't need to worry too much about grammar rules. I just needed to practice speaking and listening to English. That made me feel more relaxed. Miss Taylor also told us something very important. Language is not just about rules. It's about communication. We learn a language to share ideas and talk to people. She explained that we were learning English to connect with others, to understand them, and to express ourselves. I realized that learning English wasn't just about reading books or memorizing rules. It was about talking to people, sharing our thoughts, and building friendships. The next day in class, Hannah, a student from Japan, asked Miss Taylor a question. Hannah wanted to know the best way to learn new words in English. Miss Taylor smiled and said, "The best way to learn new words is by reading." She explained that reading is the best way to learn vocabulary. The more you read, the more words you will learn. She said, "Try to read at least 30 minutes every day. Read something you enjoy, like a short story, an article, or a simple book. If you like what you read, you will learn more." I thought this was a good idea. I love reading, so I decided to follow her advice. I started reading books, articles, and anything that was easy for me to understand. Miss Taylor also gave us another tip. When you see a word you don't know, look it up in a simple dictionary. Don't worry about writing it down. Just understand the meaning of the word. I started using my phone to look up words I didn't know. It helped me understand new words faster. I would look at the meaning of the word, and then I would read the sentence again. This made me feel more confident because I could understand the words better. One day after class, I went to a small library near my apartment. I borrowed a book called Anna's Day in New York. The book was simple, but I liked it. It was easy to understand, and I enjoyed reading it. When I found a new word, I looked it up on my phone. I would read the sentence again, and it helped me remember the word. I started reading every evening, and soon it became a habit. I didn't feel stressed about it. I just enjoyed learning. After a few weeks, I felt better about my English. I started to understand more of what people were saying around me. I felt proud of myself. In class, I began to speak more, and I didn't feel as afraid. One day, Miss Taylor introduced a new idea. We are going to practice something called shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to someone speak in English and then repeat what they say, copying their voice, speed, and tone. At first, I felt a little silly doing this. But Miss Taylor explained, this is how babies learn. They listen to people, and then they copy what they hear. It made me feel better. I started practicing shadowing at home. I would watch videos in English and repeat the words out loud. My voice was slow at first, but with practice, I started to feel more comfortable. At home, I played the same video again and repeated the sentences. It felt like singing in English. The more I practiced, the easier it became. I started to speak more naturally, and I was no longer afraid to speak in class. Shadowing helped me improve my pronunciation, and I began to sound clearer when I spoke English. One day after class, I went to the front desk to ask a question. I asked the woman there, "Are there any sports here?" He smiled and told me that there was a volleyball team and a dance group. I was so happy to hear this. I love sports, so I decided to join the volleyball team. When I went to the practice, I met students from Spain, Turkey, Japan, Italy, and India. Everyone was friendly, and I felt welcome. I started to talk more in English, and I felt more confident. I was practicing English not only in class, but also with my new friends. It felt great to speak English in real-life situations, and it made me feel even more confident. One day, a new student joined our class. Her name was Julia, and she was from Italy. Miss Taylor smiled and said, "Welcome back, Julia." I didn't understand at first, but Miss Taylor explained that Julia had been in the class last summer for 2 weeks. Julia spoke English very well, and her pronunciation was clear. She sounded confident when she spoke. Miss Taylor asked Julia, "Your school in Italy must be amazing." Julia smiled and said, "I don't go to school. I learn at home." This surprised me because I thought all students went to school. Julia explained that she read books and did shadowing to practice English. She also thought out loud in English. I didn't know what thinking aloud meant, so I raised my hand and asked. Miss Taylor explained, thinking aloud means saying your thoughts out loud in English. Even when you are alone, speak your ideas out loud. She told us that this helps the brain think in English and not in our first language. Julia explained, "At first, I thought in Italian. But after some time, I started thinking in English. Now, I think in English most of the time." I was really inspired by Julia. I decided to try thinking aloud. It felt a little strange at first, but I soon saw how it helped me. I started thinking in English more often, and it made me feel more comfortable with the language. In class, I kept practicing shadowing and thinking aloud. These methods helped me become more confident in speaking. I also continued reading every day. Slowly, I started to speak English without being afraid. I knew that I still had a lot to learn, but I felt happy with the progress I had made. Every day, I was getting better, and I knew that if I kept practicing, I would keep improving. After a few months of studying English, I got a job at a small cafe near Central Park. I was excited, but also a little nervous. I wanted to practice speaking English with real people, but I was worried that I might make mistakes. My manager's name was Tom. He was very kind and patient. He spoke slowly, so I could understand him. He said, "Don't worry, Camila. You will learn fast." This made me feel better and gave me more confidence. At the cafe, I had to make coffee, clean tables, and sometimes take orders from customers. The first few days were a little hard because many customers spoke quickly, and I couldn't always understand them. But I tried to smile, listen carefully, and ask questions when I didn't understand. Some customers were very kind. One woman said to me, "Your English is good. Keep practicing." I was happy to hear this, even though my English was not perfect. Each time I spoke in English, I felt a little more confident. One day, my manager asked me to answer the phone. I was very nervous. I'd never answered a phone in English before. On the phone, I couldn't see the person's face, so I had to understand only by listening to their voice. I was afraid I might not understand or make a mistake. But I told myself, I can try. I picked up the phone and said, "Good morning, Cafe Green. This is Camila speaking." There was a pause, and then a woman on the other side of the phone asked for 2 sandwiches and 1 coffee. I repeated her order and wrote it down. My hands were shaking, but I stayed calm. When I finished, I said, "Your order will be ready in 15 minutes. Thank you." I hung up the phone, and my manager gave me a thumbs up. "You did it," he said. I couldn't stop smiling. I had answered the phone in English, and I felt so proud of myself. Later that day, I called my mom in Brazil. I told her, "Today I answered the phone in English." She was very proud of me, and I was proud of myself too. It was a big step for me, and it showed me that I could do more than I thought. One Sunday, I had no work and no class, so I decided to explore New York by myself. I had seen a bookstore online that I wanted to visit. It was in Brooklyn, across the river. I took the subway alone for the first time, and I felt brave. I checked the map and counted the stops. But when I got off the subway, I realized I didn't know the street. I looked around, but nothing seemed familiar. I tried to open the map on my phone, but I had no signal. I started walking, hoping to find the bookstore. But after 20 minutes, I realized I was lost. I felt scared. The buildings all looked the same, and I didn't know where to go. I started to feel nervous, but then I saw a woman walking her dog. I took a deep breath and decided to ask her for help. "Hi, excuse me, I'm lost. Can you help me?" I asked. She smiled kindly and said, "Where are you trying to go?" I showed her the name of the bookstore, and she gave me directions slowly and clearly. She said, "You're doing great." Her words made me feel better and gave me hope. 10 minutes later, I found the bookstore, and I felt so proud. I had been lost in New York, but I had found my way with English. A few weeks later, Miss Taylor gave us a surprise in class. She said, "Next week, each of you will give a short talk. It should be about 2 minutes. Talk about something you love." I was nervous because I had never given a talk in English before. I started thinking about what I could say. What did I love? After thinking for a while, I smiled. I love flowers. Back in Brazil, I used to help my grandmother in her garden. I decided to talk about flowers. I wrote some simple sentences in my notebook. I wrote, "I love flowers. They are beautiful. In Brazil, I had a garden. I miss it. One day, I want to grow flowers in New York." Every night, I practiced my talk. I would say the sentences out loud, first softly and then louder. I also practiced using the shadowing technique to help with my pronunciation. I would repeat the words after listening to someone else. I practiced walking around and saying the sentences aloud, thinking in English. The day came for the presentation. My hands were cold, and I felt nervous, but I stood in front of the class. I started speaking slowly at first, but then I started to feel more comfortable. I talked about flowers, my grandmother, and my garden in Brazil. When I finished, there was silence for a moment, and then everyone clapped. Miss Taylor smiled and said, "Camila, that was beautiful and honest." I felt so happy. It was just a short talk, but it was a big achievement for me. I felt like I had overcome a big fear, and I had spoken confidently in front of the class. Now, it has been a few months since I came to New York. My English is not perfect, but I speak it every day. I understand more and more, and I'm not afraid of making mistakes anymore. I still practice reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud, and I know that these small habits are helping me grow stronger. I can understand people at the cafe, and I can talk to my friends. I feel proud of how far I've come, but I know I can keep improving. One evening, I was standing on a bridge over the East River, looking at the lights of the city. I thought about who I was when I first arrived in New York, and who I am now. Learning English has given me so much more than just language skills. It has taught me confidence, patience, and the ability to start over. Every day, I learn something new, and I'm not afraid of the future anymore. If you are learning English, or if you are facing something new, I want to tell you, you can do this. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Keep going, one step at a time, and you will get better. You are not alone on this journey. Camila's journey in New York City is a story of growth, confidence, and learning. When she first arrived in the city, she felt small and lost. Not being able to speak much English made everything feel more difficult. She struggled to communicate and often felt like an outsider. However, through determination and the support of others, Camila slowly started to find her way. Her journey began when she decided to learn English every day. She took the first step by enrolling in an English class and joined a supportive community of students from different countries. With the guidance of her teacher, Miss Taylor, Camila learned that language isn't just about rules and grammar, it's about connecting with others. She practiced speaking and listening every day. Even when it felt difficult, slowly, her confidence grew. She used practical methods like shadowing and thinking aloud to improve her speaking skills. These techniques helped her to stop fearing mistakes and start using English in real-life situations. As Camila continued practicing, she gained the courage to face challenges. She worked at a cafe, practiced English with customers, and even answered the phone in English for the first time. She learned that real progress comes from practicing every day and not being afraid to make mistakes. Her small victories, like giving a presentation in front of the class, helped her to see how far she had come. The lesson from Camila's story is clear: learning something new, especially a language, takes time and effort. It is easy to feel overwhelmed in the beginning, but if you keep practicing and pushing through the fear, you will improve. Mistakes are a part of the learning process. They are not something to be afraid of, but rather something to learn from. Camila's story shows that the more you practice, the more confident you become, and eventually, you will see real progress. For anyone learning English or facing any challenge in life, the key is to keep going. Don't let fear or doubt stop you. Take small steps every day, and you will get better over time. Camila's journey reminds us that we all have the ability to learn and grow, no matter how hard it may seem at first. Congratulations on reaching the end of Camila's story. By listening and following along, you've improved your listening and comprehension skills. Keep practicing and learning. You're doing a great job. Now, here's a small quiz for you. What is the key to improving your English according to Camila's story? A grammar rules, be daily practice, and not being afraid to make mistakes. Please comment your answer in the comments below or B. We'd love to see your responses and hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story and found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to support us. Subscribing helps us continue creating valuable content like this. Also, if you would like to support our work, consider donating. The first steps of creating high-quality content are always challenging, and your donation will help us continue making these lessons available for free. Thank you for learning with us, and we hope to see you in our next lesson.